Welcome into the Set It Off Network. I'm your host, Michael Set It Tall. This is my main man, Will Volk, here on your holiday break. If you're watching this, getting you prepared for college football playoff action. All right, we had a 50-50 split last week. We had two classic games and two snooze fests, but this week is nothing but great matchups. I will give credit to the playoff format for fixing this thing, all right, to where we don't have to watch Boise State in the second round. All right, so hats off to the playoff committee for at least fixing this part. We'll work on the rest, all right, as we go. We can't ask for too much, though. Today's game we're going to be previewing, though, Ohio State and Miami. Now, Will, this is a classic blue blood matchup. Like, these two teams, historically elite football programs, and Miami really on the come up. Ohio State has asserted themselves as being the national powerhouse now, I think, in Ryan Day's after his national championship, following up another incredible season. But coming off of their first loss there in the Big Ten championship game, Miami coming off since their 2001 national championship win, is this the biggest win in Miami program since then? I mean,
Don't
you
like
win a
it.
playoff game on the road in College Station. Pretty impressed. Was pretty impressed with Miami for sure after watching that football game. What are your initial thoughts right now? Ohio State sits as a 9.5 point favorite over Miami. This game will be New Year's Eve in the Cotton Bowl, Will.
That is a pretty big line, I would say. But Ohio State, they've been up there all season long. They were the number one team all year until Indiana, like, won a close game. It was a close game. Ohio State could easily have been undefeated instead. So they're a really tough competition. It's an interesting matchup. Blue bloods, like you said. Feel like these two teams, it's a long time ago. We were little kids back when it happened, but they were going and playing for a national championship. I think 2002, I want to say.
The
So,
controversial pass interference call, Will. I don't know if you know anything about that game, but Miami fans are still butthurt about that. There was in overtime, Miami was winning, all right, and there was a phantom pass interference call in favor of Ohio State that gave Ohio State a chance to score, and they ended
mhm.
up scoring and winning the game. And Miami fans still not too happy about that, bringing up very dark memories. They could have been back-to-back national champs, man.
And
But referee cost them the game there. But that was a long time ago, Will. All right. Hopefully, most people our age probably don't even remember that. But either way, these two teams stack up elite talent on elite talent. Both of these rosters, I will say, Miami doesn't really fit the profile of the elite roster when you go and look at their schedule and look at who they lost to and stuff like that. But Miami is one of the most talented teams in the country. And you know what? A lot of people like to crap on Mario Cristobal, but if you go look at Mario Cristobal, they have stacked wins every single season. They have gotten better every single year. They had 10 wins last year, just got their 11th this year, last week in their win in a playoff game. So, how does this game match up? I think it matches up very well talent wise. I don't think there's going to be a big, drop off. Usually in these games, like we were talking about in the Oregon Texas Tech game, like usually one talent profile favors the other. But in this one, I feel like it is very evenly matched and doesn't really fit that 9.5 point spread that we're looking at. My biggest question is, has Miami awakened? Will, is this the Miami that I had as the set it off number one team in the country in the middle of the year, where they looked great and nobody could really stop them? Or is this the Miami team that's very inconsistent and could face problems? Now, Ohio State's going to give a lot of teams problem because that Ohio State defense is, let's face it, it's better than Texas A&M's defense, and Miami didn't necessarily go out there and have a field day on A&M's defense. So look for this game to be a very low scoring game. But my biggest take, as far as if Miami is going to be able to win this football game, is Carson Beck. And I feel like we talk about this every time we preview Miami, but Carson Beck is going to have to play elite, like not just good, not just going to be able to coast, because you're not going to be able to run the ball consistently against this Ohio State defense. he is going to have to make plays through the air. He is going to have one of those classic Carson Beck, you know, took us over the top kind of game if they're going to have a chance to win. Because if he plays like he did against A&M, they're going to lose. Let's just face it. He's going to have to go above and beyond what he has been doing for Miami to have a chance. But I think that is still potentially in there, Will.
Yeah, and I like what you said about it being a low scoring game, and I think that's kind of what we're setting up for Miami. If you look at their schedule this season, they've really held opponents to not many points in most of their games, and classic example of that against Texas A&M last week, and then Ohio State's last game. We saw how low scoring that thing was, and Ohio State's defense in general, they just do not let people score. So I think low scoring is going to be the name of the game for this one. And yeah, it might be like some kind of thing where it's first to 17 wins or something like that. That's not too entertaining for me to watch, but it's a close game, and it's a kind of thing where if you get one big play, that can really make a huge difference in the game. And we talked about when we were previewing Miami A&M, talking about Carson Beck. These are the big stages. Like for him, he has not seen these big stages before. He didn't play in a playoff game at Georgia. Hard to believe because he was a starting quarterback for some really good Georgia teams, but here he is now playing in a New Year's Six bowl game. I think for the first time. He might have played against Florida State actually that one year, but either way, first time in a big time playoff bowl game like this, and big opponent against Ohio State, big stage, big opportunity. I think Carson Beck's built for this. I think he's going to have a good performance against that Ohio State defense, and certainly going to be a lot closer than 9.5.
Well, I will say one thing about the big game thing is that if they handled the atmosphere last weekend in College Station
Mm-hmm.
for a playoff game, I don't think Miami's going to be too rattled by the environment that the Cotton Bowl is going to create in the big game environment. I honestly think that kind of shifts towards the Ohio State because the same thing we kind of talked about with Texas Tech not playing close games. Well, Ohio State doesn't play close games either. And just like Texas Tech, the one close game they did play, they lost. So, and that is fresh in Ohio State's mind, them losing that game to Indiana. While I do believe Ohio State is very talented, and you talked about it, the defense giving up 8.2 points per game, Will, that's pretty crazy. Stat there. But most importantly is we saw in that Texas A&M game, Miami was able to run the football, right? Once they kind of realized the defense kind of had A&M in a chokehold, and they really just needed Carson Beck not to lose them that football game, they really just started grounding and pounding on them, and they were able to run the ball. I think Mark Fletcher Jr. had over like 170 yards rushing. That is not happening. All right, that is not. If I had to bet the house on it, is that Ohio State is going to be able to stop Miami from running the football. Like you're not getting a performance of 200 rushing yards against this Ohio State defense as a team that gives up under 100 every game. So that is not going to be in the cards. That's why I think this thing falls back on Carson Beck. Is if they're going to win, they're going to have to throw the ball. But you talked about big plays, right? Big plays being a factor in this game, especially one that could be very low scoring. And who to have better than Jeremiah Smith, a guy from South Beach, all right, a guy that was heavily recruited by Miami, ended up going to Ohio State and turned into a freak show, alien type receiver. We saw this guy in the playoff run last year carry Ohio State's offense to a national championship single-handedly. This guy makes plays. Like, let's be honest, he's going to be fired up playing in his hometown team. This Miami defense is good, but Jeremiah Smith is very good as well. And he already, went into his press conference to kind of said, hey, they're going to have to find a way to stop me. The A&M guys were talking nonsense about that Miami defense, and it kind of bit them. But, Jeremiah Smith is one of those guys where I think he can back it up. So that's going to be an intriguing matchup. But, Will, I just want to throw this out there. We look at Miami in 2024, right? This defense, was awful. it was one of the worst defenses in college football. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Mario Cristobal hiring that staff and doing a complete 180 on turning this defense into one of the best units in the entire country, from being one of the worst to the best. And it's not really that they got new personnel. It's the coaching has been a lot better. They revamped a little bit parts in here and there on that defense, but overall, that defense has made tremendous strides. And you can imagine what this year's defense with Miami would have looked like on last year's offense for Miami and Cam Ward and company. But that's how fragile college football is, man. It's kind of one of those things where year to year things change a lot. So, what's your thoughts? Give me your prediction on this game, Miami, Ohio State, -9.5.
Well, like I said, I think 9.5 is too much. I think it's going to be a low scoring game, and when it's a low scoring game, it's hard to, beat somebody by double digits. So, oh man, we got the factor of Ohio State. That loss to Indiana might have woken something up in them. We saw last year how they lost their last game before the playoff. That was a much different situation, losing to a bad Michigan team instead of a really good Indiana team. But still, could that have awoken something in Ohio State? But then again, I like to say it, we haven't seen any of these bye teams in history win, So I'm going to say that trend continues, and I would love to see a Carson Beck versus Georgia matchup in the semifinal, and Miami winning would certainly keep that possibility alive. Yeah, I'm picking Miami. I think they're going to win a very close one, and it's going to be a really low-scoring game. It wouldn't surprise me if they got, no more than 13 points, but I'm taking the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines. I am going to pick Ohio State though, but I do think this game is going to fall underneath that 9.5. There's just I don't know, unless Ohio State is just hitting on all cylinders and just kind of blitzkrieg them like they did Oregon last year in that first round, where you knew Oregon was a very talented team, but Ohio State just kind of took it to them, and before Oregon even knew what hit them, that could be one of those things, or it could be one of those things where maybe last week was Miami's Super Bowl and they were just solely focused on winning that game. And then, it's hard to put up those kind of emotional, grinding performances back to back weeks. We see it every week in the SEC. You play a challenging game and then, you have a game the next week, right? And you got to bring their A game every week. Can Miami bring their A game 2 weeks in a row? I don't think so. I think Ohio State's going to win. I don't think Ohio State's going to cover. I'm going to say 17-13 final score here. And that one kicks off our college football playoff second round with an Ohio State win. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. This is another game me and Will pick differently on. So let me know in the comments whether you think Will and Miami are going to get this one done, or you think Ohio State's going to continue their dominance in the postseason and get a win. Either way, make sure you're subscribed, like the video, comment, do whatever you got to do. But make sure you're sticking around throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Check in this week. We're going to have all the game previews for the second round coming out, so make sure you're checking those out as well, and then sticking around throughout the entire postseason. And we will see you guys next time.